The beautifully wrapped package sits heavy in my lap. "Open it! Open it!" my new mother-in-law Margaret trills, her eyes gleaming with an emotion I can't quite place. Around us, our wedding reception continues in full swing, but somehow the chatter and music seem to fade away as I carefully pull at the pristine white ribbon. Ethan, my husband of exactly 8 hours, squeezes my shoulder. "Mom's been so secretive about this one," he says with a smile. The wrapping paper falls away to reveal a handcrafted scrapbook, bound in expensive leather with delicate gold lettering that reads, "The Road Not Taken." Confused, I open to the first page, and my entire world shifts on its axis. Victoria's face stares back at me. Victoria, Ethan's college girlfriend. Victoria, the one who got away, at least according to Margaret. Victoria, in dozens of photographs I've never seen before, spanning years of their relationship. "I thought you should know your competition, dear," Margaret says, her voice honey-sweet with venom underneath. After all, every wife should understand what came before her. The blood drains from my face as I look up at my mother-in-law, then at my new husband, whose expression has transformed from joy to shock to something like horror. And that's when I realize, this isn't just a tasteless joke. This is a declaration of war. 12 hours earlier, I had awakened to sunlight streaming through the hotel curtains, my heart full of nothing but joy and anticipation. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. "Hey," my best friend and maid of honor Rachel had said as she placed a cup of coffee on my nightstand. "Ready to become Mrs. Wallace?" I'd grinned and stretched, feeling like I was floating. More than ready. The morning had passed in a whirlwind of hairstyling, makeup application, champagne sips, and laughter with my bridesmaids. My mother had cried when she saw me in my dress, a simple but elegant A-line with delicate lace detailing that had cost more than I'd care to admit. "You look perfect, sweetheart," she'd said, carefully dabbing at her eyes to avoid ruining her makeup. "Ethan is going to fall in love all over again when he sees you." I believed her. Ethan and I had been together for 3 years, and every day felt like falling in love all over again. We'd met at a charity fundraiser where we were both volunteers. He was setting up audio equipment, and I was coordinating the silent auction items. He'd asked me out over stacked boxes of donated books, and I'd said yes before he even finished the question. Our relationship hadn't been without its challenges. Ethan's mother, Margaret, had made it clear from the beginning that she thought her son was settling. Not that she ever said it outright. Margaret was too skilled in the art of passive aggression for that. It was all in the little things. The way she'd mention Victoria, Ethan's college girlfriend, at every opportunity. The way she'd sigh and say, "Well, I suppose times have changed," when Ethan mentioned my career as an environmental lawyer. The way she'd pull out photo albums full of Ethan's childhood and teenage years whenever I visited, but somehow always lingered on the pages featuring him and Victoria at high school dances or family vacations. "She's just protective," Ethan would say. "She'll come around." I'd wanted to believe him. I'd tried my best with Margaret, bringing her favorite pastries when we visited, asking about her garden and her book club, sending thoughtful birthday and Christmas gifts. Nothing seemed to thaw the ice. But today wasn't about Margaret. It was about Ethan and me, starting our life together, or so I thought. I hadn't seen Ethan since the rehearsal dinner the night before, sticking to tradition despite not being particularly superstitious. As Rachel helped me into my dress and my mother secured my veil, I thought about the vows I'd written, promising to love Ethan through whatever life threw at us. I just hadn't expected to be tested so soon. The ceremony was everything I'd dreamed it would be. The historic stone chapel was decorated with white roses and eucalyptus, sunlight streaming through stained glass windows and casting colorful patterns across the aisle. When the doors opened and I saw Ethan waiting at the altar, his eyes filling with tears as he caught sight of me, any lingering anxiety melted away. This was right. We were right. I barely remember walking down the aisle, my father's arm steady beneath my hand. I remember Ethan's face, though. The way he looked at me like I was the only person in the world. The way he whispered, "You're breathtaking," as I reached him. The ceremony passed in a blur of promises and rings, and finally, the kiss that sealed our marriage. We pulled apart to cheers and applause, and when I looked out at our guests, I saw genuine happiness on almost every face. Almost every face. Margaret sat in the front row, dressed impeccably in pale blue silk, her expression inscrutable. When our eyes met, she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I pushed the thought away. Nothing was going to ruin this day. The reception was held in the garden of the same historic estate as the chapel, tables set up beneath string lights and a canopy of ancient oak trees. Ethan and I had our first dance to the song that had been playing the first time he told me he loved me. We cut the cake. Lemon with raspberry filling. Margaret had wrinkled her nose when we'd announced our choice months ago, saying Victoria had always preferred traditional vanilla, and fed each other pieces without smashing it in each other's faces, as Ethan had promised. Then came the time for opening gifts. We'd planned to do most of it later, but a few special presents from immediate family were set aside to be opened at the reception. My parents gave us a set of first edition books by authors we both loved, something to start our library together in the new house we'd bought. Ethan's father, divorced from Margaret for nearly a decade and remarried to a kind woman named Susan, gave us a beautiful handcrafted dining table he'd made himself. And then Margaret stepped forward with her gift, wrapped in white paper with a silver bow. "I've been working on this for months," she said, her voice carrying across the now quieted reception. "Ever since you announced your engagement." I took the package, smiling at her despite the knot forming in my stomach. It was heavier than I expected, and as I unwrapped it, I saw it was a leather-bound book. A scrapbook, I realized, as I opened to the first page. And there was Victoria. Victoria on her high school graduation day, with an 18-year-old Ethan by her side, both in caps and gowns. Victoria and Ethan at college, arms around each other at football games and parties. Victoria at Christmas with the Wallace family, sitting exactly where I'd sat last Christmas in the chair next to Margaret. Page after page of Victoria and Ethan. Victoria and Margaret. Victoria with Ethan's extended family. Victoria on vacations, at family events, at what looked like Margaret's birthday party just 4 years ago, well after she and Ethan had broken up. And captions, all in Margaret's elegant handwriting. The perfect pair. My son and the daughter of my heart. Family vacation with the girl who completes our family. The couple everyone thought would go the distance. On the final page, a recent photo of Victoria. Beautiful, poised, successful-looking Victoria. And beneath it, the words, "The road not taken." A reminder of what could have been. The silence around us is deafening. I can feel hundreds of eyes on me, waiting for my reaction. Beside me, Ethan has gone rigid, his face flushed with shock and then anger. "Mom," he says, his voice dangerously quiet. "What is this?" Margaret laughs, the sound brittle and false. "Just a little family history, darling. I thought Olivia should know about the important people in your life." "Victoria hasn't been part of my life for 5 years," Ethan says, the muscles in his jaw working. "Oh, that's not entirely true," Margaret says, her smile never wavering. "You might not be together anymore, but she'll always be family to me. We still have lunch once a month. She just made partner at her law firm, you know?" She turns to me. "Victoria's a corporate attorney. Very prestigious." I can't speak. Can't move. The scrapbook sits open in my lap, Victoria's face smiling up at me, while around us, wedding guests shift uncomfortably or whisper behind their hands. My mother stands up from her table, her face thunderous. But before she can say anything, Rachel is there, smoothly taking the scrapbook from my numb fingers. "What a thoughtful gift," she says, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "I'm sure Olivia will treasure this glimpse into ancient history." She snaps the book closed and hands it to one of the waitstaff. "Would you mind taking this to the gift table? And I think it's time for the next toast." As Rachel nods to the band to start playing again and Ethan's best man hurriedly takes the microphone to distract the crowd, Ethan leans close to me. "I'm so sorry," he whispers, his eyes full of regret. "I had no idea she would do something like this." I want to tell him it's okay, that I'm fine, but the words won't come, because it isn't okay. None of this is okay. "I need a minute," I manage, standing up on shaky legs. "Just 1 minute." I walk as steadily as I can toward the estate house, feeling the weight of stairs on my back. As soon as I'm inside, I find the small powder room near the entrance and lock myself in, finally letting the tears come. The image of that scrapbook, so lovingly crafted to hurt me, plays on repeat in my mind. All those photos, all those captions. 5 years worth of lunches with Victoria that Ethan had never mentioned. Had he known? Was he hiding it from me? Or was this just another of Margaret's manipulations? A soft knock comes at the door. Liv? It's me. Ethan. I take a deep breath, wipe my eyes, and open the door. He looks devastated, his earlier joy completely erased. I swear to you, I had no idea my mother was still in contact with Victoria. I haven't spoken to Victoria since we broke up senior year of college. I search his face, looking for any hint of deception, but see only distress and sincerity. You never told me your mother was so attached to her. Ethan runs a hand through his hair. I didn't think it was that deep. She mentioned Victoria occasionally, yes, but I thought it was just, I don't know, reminiscing about the past. I never imagined she was still seeing her, still hoping we'd get back together. He takes my hands in his. Olivia, you have to believe me. There's nothing between me and Victoria. There hasn't been for years. I love you, only you. I want to believe him. I do believe him. But the humiliation of sitting there while everyone watched me realize my mother-in-law had been cultivating a relationship with my husband's ex-girlfriend behind my back. It's almost too much to bear. What are we going to do? I ask, hating how small my voice sounds. Ethan's expression hardens with resolve. I'm going to talk to my mother. Right now. No, I say, grabbing his arm as he turns to leave. Not now. Not at our wedding. She's already ruined enough of today. She needs to apologize to you, to us. And she will, I say, finding my strength returning as anger begins to replace shock. But not here. Not now. Today is supposed to be about us, and I refuse to let her make it about Victoria or herself or anything else. Ethan looks at me with a mixture of admiration and concern. Are you sure? I nod, straightening my shoulders. I'm sure. We're going to go back out there, and we're going to dance and celebrate and be happy because we deserve that. We'll deal with your mother tomorrow. Ethan pulls me into his arms, holding me tight. I love you so much. I'm so sorry this happened. I cling to him for a moment, drawing strength from his embrace. I love you too. Now let's go show everyone what this marriage is really made of. We walk back to the reception hand in hand, heads held high. The music is playing, guests are dancing, and if there are still whispers about Margaret's gift, they fade as Ethan leads me onto the dance floor and spins me into his arms. For the rest of the evening, we stay close to each other, a united front. Margaret watches from her table, her expression souring as she realizes her dramatic gesture hasn't had the devastating effect she'd hoped for. When she approaches us later, Ethan cuts her off before she can speak. Not now, Mother, he says, his voice firm. We'll talk tomorrow. The hurt and surprise on her face gives me a small, vindictive satisfaction. She isn't used to Ethan standing up to her. As the night wears on, the incident begins to feel more distant, overshadowed by genuine moments of joy. Dancing with my father, laughing with college friends I hadn't seen in years, cutting loose on the dance floor with Rachel and my other bridesmaids. By the time Ethan and I make our exit through a tunnel of sparklers held by our cheering guests, I've almost managed to push the scrapbook from my mind. Almost. I can't believe she did that, Ethan says for the 10th time as we enter our hotel suite. The room is scattered with rose petals, a bottle of champagne chilling beside the bed. Romantic touches arranged by the hotel for newlyweds. I sit on the edge of the bed, carefully removing my veil. I keep trying to understand her motivation. What did she think would happen? That you'd suddenly realize you married the wrong woman and go running back to Victoria? Ethan loosens his tie with sharp, angry movements. I honestly don't know what goes on in her head anymore. She's always been controlling, but this is a whole new level. Has she always been like this? I ask, a question I'd been hesitant to voice before. So manipulative? Ethan sighs, sitting beside me. Yes and no. She's always had strong opinions about how I should live my life, who I should be friends with, what career I should pursue. After my dad left, it got worse. I think she transferred all her hopes and expectations onto me. And Victoria fit those expectations in a way I don't. Victoria was exactly who my mother wanted me to be with. From the right family, the right background, pursuing the right career, but she wasn't right for me. He takes my hand, his eyes meeting mine. You are. You challenge me, you make me laugh, you see me for who I really am, not who anyone wants me to be. I squeeze his hand, loving him fiercely in that moment. So what do we do about your mother? Tomorrow, Ethan says, kissing my palm. We'll go to her house before we leave for our honeymoon. We'll tell her exactly how inappropriate her gift was, and we'll make it clear that if she wants to be part of our lives, she needs to respect our marriage and respect you. And if she doesn't, then she doesn't see us. It's that simple. The determination in his voice leaves no room for doubt. You're my family now, Olivia. You're my priority. I lean my head against his shoulder, exhausted from the emotional roller coaster of the day. I never wanted to come between you and your mother. You didn't. She did this, not you. He kisses the top of my head. Now, I know this isn't exactly how either of us pictured our wedding night going, but what do you say we open that champagne and try to salvage some celebration from this day? I look up at him, this man who's promised to stand by me through better or worse, a vow tested within hours of making it, and feel a rush of love. I say that sounds perfect. We change out of our wedding clothes, toast to our marriage with expensive champagne, and fall asleep in each other's arms, both silently hoping that tomorrow will bring resolution rather than more conflict. Margaret's house is exactly as I remember it. Pristine, tastefully decorated, and cold despite the summer heat outside. She opens the door before we can knock, her face carefully composed into an expression of polite surprise. Ethan, Olivia, I wasn't expecting you. Isn't your flight to Bali this evening? We need to talk, Mom, Ethan says, his voice leaving no room for argument. Margaret's eyes flick between us, then she steps back, allowing us into her immaculate foyer. Of course. Would you like some tea? No, Ethan and I say in unison. She leads us to her living room, taking a seat in her favorite armchair while we sit on the sofa across from her. For a moment, no one speaks. I can see Margaret preparing her defense, straightening her already perfect posture, arranging her features into an expression of innocent confusion. If this is about the scrapbook, she begins, I really don't understand why you're so upset. It was just a bit of family history. It was inappropriate and hurtful, Ethan says, his voice tight with controlled anger. You deliberately tried to humiliate Olivia on our wedding day. Margaret's eyes widen. Humiliate? Ethan, that's absurd. How could sharing memories be humiliating? They weren't memories, Mom. They were weapons. And don't pretend you don't know exactly what you were doing with those captions, with that final page. The road not taken? Really? A flash of something, defiance perhaps, crosses Margaret's face before she schools it back into innocence. I simply thought Olivia should know about your past. All couples should be transparent with each other. Transparent, I say, speaking for the first time since we'd entered. Like how you've been transparent about having monthly lunches with Victoria for the past 5 years? Margaret's gaze turns frosty when it settles on me. Victoria and I have a special bond. I don't see why that should be a problem. It's a problem because you never mentioned it to me, Ethan says. It's a problem because you created an entire scrapbook glorifying my college relationship and gave it to my wife at our wedding reception. I thought she should know what she was measuring up against, Margaret says, the pretense of innocence finally dropping away. Victoria was perfect for you, Ethan. From a good family, ambitious, sophisticated. She understood our world in a way that Olivia never will. Each word is a slap, but I refuse to flinch. I've faced tougher opponents in courtrooms across the state. That's enough, Ethan says, standing. I love Olivia. I married Olivia. And if you can't respect that, if you can't respect her, then we have nothing more to discuss. Margaret stands as well, her face flushed with anger. You're choosing her over your own mother? Over family? Olivia is my family now, Ethan says, his voice steady. And I'm not choosing anyone over anyone else. I'm simply asking you to treat my wife with the respect she deserves. And what about what I deserve? Margaret demands. After everything I've done for you? I raised you alone after your father left us. I gave you every opportunity. I only want what's best for you. No, Ethan says quietly. You want what you think is best for me. There's a difference. He takes my hand, interlacing our fingers. We're leaving for our honeymoon tonight. When we get back, you can call us if you're ready to apologize to Olivia and commit to respecting our marriage. If not, we'll be taking a break from this relationship. You can't be serious, Margaret says, her voice rising. You'd cut me off over this? Not forever, Mom. Just until you can understand how hurtful your actions have been. Margaret turns to me, her eyes hard. This is your doing. You've turned my son against me. I meet her gaze steadily. No, Margaret. You did that all on your own. She recoils as if I'd struck her, then draws herself up, ice in every line of her body. Get out of my house. Both of you. Ethan hesitates for just a second, pain flashing across his face. Then he nods, and we walk to the door together, his hand still firmly holding mine. As we step outside, the door slams shut behind us with a finality that echoes in the quiet suburban street. Are you okay? I ask Ethan as we walk to our car. He's quiet for a moment, then says, Not really, but I will be. He looks at me, his eyes full of both sadness and certainty. We did the right thing. She needed to hear that her behavior is unacceptable. Do you think she'll come around? I ask as we get into the car. Ethan sighs, starting the engine. I don't know. She's stubborn and she's not used to me setting boundaries, but I hope so, for all our sakes. We drive in silence for a while, both processing the confrontation. As we turn onto the highway back toward our home, Ethan reaches for my hand again. I meant what I said in there. You're my family now, my priority, and I promise you we're going to build a life together that's filled with love and respect, regardless of what my mother chooses to do. I squeeze his hand, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. I believe you. 3 weeks later, tanned and relaxed from our honeymoon in Bali, we returned to find our new home exactly as we'd left it, except for the package sitting on our front porch. It's small, wrapped in simple brown paper with no bow or decoration. Ethan picks it up, checking the label. It's from my mother, he says, his expression guarded. We take it inside, setting it on our kitchen counter and staring at it as if it might explode. Should we open it? I ask eventually. Ethan nods, carefully unwrapping the paper to reveal a small, flat box. Inside is a single photograph in a silver frame. Ethan and me on our wedding day, laughing together during our first dance, and a handwritten note. Ethan reads it aloud. Ethan and Olivia, I owe you both an apology. My behavior at your wedding was inexcusable, and my words at our last meeting even more so. The truth is, I've been holding on to the past because I'm afraid of the future. Afraid of losing my place in your life, Ethan. Afraid of becoming irrelevant. That fear is no excuse for how I've treated Olivia, or for my inappropriate relationship with Victoria, which I have now ended. Seeing this photo, the joy on both your faces, made me realize how wrong I've been. You belong together. Anyone with eyes can see that. I don't expect forgiveness right away, or perhaps ever, but I am truly sorry, and I hope that someday you might allow me the chance to show you that I can change, that I can be the mother and mother-in-law you both deserve. With love and regret, Mom. I look at Ethan, seeing the emotions play across his face. Surprise, skepticism, hope. Do you think she means it? I ask. Ethan sets the note down carefully. I think she wants to mean it. Whether she can actually change remains to be seen. He looks at me. What do you think? You're the one she hurt the most with that stunt. I consider the question seriously. I think we give her a chance to prove herself. One chance. With clear boundaries and expectations. Ethan nods, pulling me into a hug. Agreed. And if she steps out of line again, Then we'll deal with it together, I say, resting my head against his chest, like we promised we would. Together, Ethan repeats, kissing the top of my head. As we stand in our new kitchen, in our new home, at the beginning of our new life, I know that whatever comes next, whether Margaret truly changes or not, Ethan and I will face it as a team. The scrapbook of his past with Victoria no longer matters. What matters is the future we're creating, one day at a time, filled with our own pictures, our own memories, our own love story. And no one, not even Margaret, can take that away from us.